It's time to talk music, audio gear, and anything else that crosses our minds. I'm Mark.
And I'm Peter.
And welcome to the Hurton Audio Podcast. So, Peter, you've been very, very much anticipating Moon Music, the new album by Coldplay. So much that we've watched every single scrap of entertainment Coldplay's put out in the last week or so, from QVC to SNL.
The QVC one in particular, I think if you like Coldplay and you're not aware, go to QVC on YouTube or type Coldplay QVC. It's such a funny bit that they've gone on QVC because... and we were saying that, is it like a thing? Do they have live bands on? Because I think if you're not American, it's hard to know what QVC is. It's like a shopping channel. But just the fact that they're playing music and then they're literally flogging the CDs and vinyls on QVC, I just thought it was really funny. I think he said, Chris Martin said on Jimmy Fallon that, they thought if they was going to promote their wares, they might as well do it like, in a really, really... dry, we are selling a product way, which I just think is actually just brilliant, to be honest.
And it's strange because you really don't see artists doing that. The only way you actually see that is maybe through social media. If you follow somebody on Instagram, they'll be flogging their wares via Instagram or that sort of thing.
It's normally a lot more subtle for the arts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Promotion.
And it also feels like third hand. It never feels like it's the artist directly telling you to go buy their CD. You always feel like it's maybe
a label
or something else like that. Like they're obliged to do it. You don't feel like it's normally like on TV. Like say with Chris Martin, it was like, we've got 700 copies left. Can we sell all 700 copies?
Yeah.
And there was something very funny about it in general. They've also was on Apple Music, on Zane Lowe's show, and on Jimmy Fallon. So a lot of content to
as well
digest.
as Saturday Night Live. So they really did like the full America like sweep or like a little. I'm assuming they're going to be doing a lot more press, but we're here to talk about the album, which I would say we need more. We got more like last night or this morning. If you're listening, just on the Sunday after Moon Music came out, they announced Moon Music's Full Moon edition, which is great. And there's another edition on the web store, which has like a full live album on, basically, on the end. Now, my only gripe, as somebody who likes the content, is that two of the songs on one of the deluxe editions is also on the other, being Feels Like I'm Falling Live and All My Love Live in Dublin, which to me is a bit annoying, because I want it all. I want 30 tracks for Moon Music, and, I'll have to settle for 28, which is a lot more than I thought we was going to get, because there's been a lot of different sort of things happen regarding Moon Music as a release rollout. The main headline everybody's seen is Coldplay are retiring, and I think that is the worst possible conclusion to make from what Chris Martin has said in all these interviews. He's clearly stated that they're going to make 12 albums, and Moon Music is album number 10.
The 11th album is allegedly a musical, which I find very hard to believe, but that seems to be what Chris Martin is saying. That's what everybody is reporting it on. And then the final album, which we've known since like Milo or something like that, is going to be just called Coldplay. They've had that like rumoured to be a thing for a long while. Yeah,
that has been circulating for an extremely long time, specifically on places like Coldplaying, like one of the forums or one of the fan sites for Coldplay. And I think that the thing regarding retirement is a very funny word, because they're only talking about albums. They haven't said anything about other releases. In fact, they've actually said that there will be projects that are not under Coldplay that will be released anyway. And I was also thinking, like this morning, there's a lot of bands, classic rock bands, that haven't released an album in 20 years, and they are not bands you would have considered to be retired.
Also, if you think about like Chris Martin did allude to box sets and things like that, even in the Zane Lowe interview. He did say, like, almost not under his breath, but it was very subtle. He was like, box sets and collections and such.
Yeah, he did say, he did sort of hint that it's not necessarily the last Coldplay album, but the last main line. Like, because what did he say? He said a specific word. It was like official or something along them lines, like the last real Coldplay album.
Yeah, like as a body of work. But the thing that I found very interesting, like when you look at bands like U2, obviously they've just done How to Reassemble an Atomic Bomb, which has a full B-side called the Shadow Album. which is all the songs that didn't make that cut. So this is what you can expect from Coldplay, but they've kind of Uno reversed everybody and just put that out today or last night. Like you feel like the Shadow album that sort of been advertised for how to reassemble an atomic bomb, we've just got with the Karate Kid, Angel Song, Man in the Moon, and then other B-sides, Airwave, and some of these were rumoured to be on, like when we was talking about the Genius article and speculating the track list, some of these songs are songs that have, you know, sort of come up before.
I feel like, and this is good, I would have to listen back to our other episode where we went through Genius, I feel like the Karate Kid was there. Airwave definitely was there. And another thing, like regarding that article, is that Good Feelings was on there, and it said it had the Chainsmokers on. And when the album came out, I thought, oh, it has. I'm going to butcher this name.
Ira Star, I would say.
Ira Star. I'm sorry if that's wrong. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. Chainsmokers must not be on it. But if you actually dig into the production credits, it is at least co-produced or co-written by Chainsmokers. They are credited on that, which I thought was quite interesting because that is actually, you know, correct. And Turner was also on there. One World obviously was on there because that had been teed up by the audience participation of everybody singing a note and it being included. And when I looked at the digital book, and this is something that I've seen on a lot of forums, everybody's trying to find out, does anybody have the digital book where it credits all the 100 million people who did this? And it just says thank you to the number, and I think it was something along the lines of 134,000 people who had actually submitted.
Oh, so you don't know if whatever you've submitted is on there. Yeah. There's no way to see like the names of the people who submitted.
I think it was a great idea for a band with less fans, but a band like Coldplay where they will have got, and I think it does say like 134,000 or 1,300,000. It's one or the other. It's a big number, and obviously they thought the work alone just to type all that up would be a nightmare. So it isn't actually a full credit, which I think a lot of people was hoping for. But yeah, to talk about the album, I think the album's fantastic. I've seen a lot of people saying that it's better than Music of the Spheres. I really like Music of the Spheres, so I think, you know, I don't want to not say it's better because I do really like it. I think there's something more exciting about this album in a sense, simply because Colatura took a lot of real estate up off Music of the Spheres, but also Good Feelings and Eterna are very, very out there. Production wise, and then a lot of the songs are actually more sort of relaxed in terms of production. They're a bit more like down to earth. So you've got two songs that are just absolutely wild, and the rest of the album is pretty much like sort of classic Coldplay in a certain sense.
I think part of the reason why people have generally said they prefer this album is because of the Beatles influence on All My Love, slightly on Moon Music as well. It is there, and then you also have like the English classic rock sort of influence with the concept album, like the big orchestral crescendos and stuff. Big interludes like Alien Hits, Alien Radios feels very, very Beatlesy in the way it's done.
Yeah.
And then you've got the outro, having a big outro sing-along Hey Jude moment. You've got the intro. There's a lot to nod to the Beatles, and like Chris Martin has said the Beatles a lot in the interviews. And I think that's why, particularly in England, you'll see people prefer it.
Yeah.
Because Music of the Spheres felt very like global, but also like Americanized, if you like interpret it in that way.
Because People of the Pride, we were saying, is a really cool like rock song, but it is inherently American. Like the songs that I would compare to People of the Pride are all by American bands, like 30 Seconds to Mars. The only English band I would actually compare People of the Pride to are Muse, and I wouldn't say Muse are the most stereotypically English sounding band.
Yeah. So I think that's partly why people have received it slightly better. It has more of like an eclectic sound to it, whereas Music of the Sphere sounds a lot more pop oriented. This sounds like more, ooh, it's fancy. Do you know what I mean? In that musicality way, people listen. I mean, I think it's just the piano run in All My Love as a single. It gives you that classic. It takes you straight back to it because you don't really hear like that anymore in radio.
It's what you would call like a tease and release in terms of songwriting of it's so broken down to the core element of just the piano and the voice for so long as well on that song, and then they sort of start bringing in the other instruments, and then there's like you say, Hey Jude is quite a good comparison because there's that big payoff on All My Love. And did you say that was supposed to be the last single? Did you read that?
What I read was, according to Chris Martin, All My Love is Coldplay's last single.
And I thought that was really interesting because you said that just before this album came out, and then when I looked, it said Jupiter single version, and I was like, oh, but I thought,
before the deluxe version came out.
Yeah, because you read that before the deluxe version came out, and I just thought that was quite interesting. But I do think, obviously, I think what Coldplay and Chris Martin, who is sort of leading the creative direction of specifically what Coldplay are doing in the future, it's all been coming out of Chris Martin's mouth. And the Zane Lowe Apple Music interview does sort of give some really interesting perspective because, obviously people like us, we like to say, no, don't announce that you're going to stop doing stuff. But the band sort of likened it to running a marathon and not knowing how long you're running for. It makes sense to have an end goal in mind. And, I don't think that end goal is necessarily the end of Coldplay, but, the end of maybe making this particular run of actual mainline albums.
Also, it may take them another 10 years to do these 2 albums if we're spacing them by 3 or 4 years at a time. And I imagine this musical album, I'd be very, very surprised if it come out fast.
I personally think the musical album, I think it could come out fast, but if I say fast, I mean like in 2 years, because I think they'll be touring next year, but I don't think the musical album will tour, but I do think the musical album could go to Broadway and the West End. That may be the goal.
In that sort of way, would Coldplay be on the West End, or would they just submit their album and somebody else would be playing it every night for the stage show?
They would do a run, maybe like an opening run where they would maybe feature, but it wouldn't be like they would just be there to help it along. It would be like, like We Will Rock You and like a lot of the Broadways where they establish the actual show with the cast and they're just there to say, come see the show that we've written.
The other thing with the full moon edition of Moon Music is this is a very big trend that's happening basically at the start of this year. This has become like a real industry thing, and it was hard to know when Taylor Swift, and I hate to bring everything back to Taylor Swift, every episode it always comes back to Taylor Swift, but with the Tortured Poets department, that surprise, the album's just come out, here's another 15 songs. We've seen that happen with Brat by Charlie XCX, a bunch of other albums, and now Moon Music, and this seems to be a thing. It's like, as soon as everybody's got the pre-orders in, people have gone, fine, that looks like the only edition available from the artist's store. It's like, wait till you've just sold all the albums you're going to sell in the first weekend, then announce that there's a new digital thing. And I think it's for the charts. It's to get the original 10 songs as high in the charts as possible. But it leaves a sour taste in my mouth, not in a sense that we're getting more music, but I feel like when they're releasing these sort of albums, they should maybe be more transparent in what the full release looks like and when it comes out, so you can pick what version you want to pre-order, instead of sort of feeling like you've just got your album through the mail and then they're saying that is now an inferior version of this album, here's the full version.
I think for what it would be worth, I think we said this regarding Tortured Poets department, specifically because that deluxe version, which I got, comes in a 2 CD case with 1 CD. It would have been very easy for Taylor Swift's team to put an extra disc with the however many songs is extra on there. Seeing as there is literally a slot in the case, and the CD at the level they're doing it's like a penny of this.
I'd love to see when, because obviously you've not got your copy of Moon Music yet, Pierre, because they're all delayed. So
it's in such popular demand that they can't actually ship the pre-orders from what I've seen.
What I'd like to see really is when people get their vinyls and CDs, there is a secret second disc or even like a digital code for the people who've pre-ordered on day one would be like really nice.
It would be really nice, yeah.
And it would also be a really good surprising, a really good goodwill gesture to all the fans that pre-order. I feel like this is the same as like games where the people who pre-order first get the raw end of the deal, and people who wait can then sort of look and decide how they want to buy the full version. Obviously, a lot of these are digital only as well, which is also frustrating. Because you know, like we say, a lot of these are major label artists that, you know, printing CDs for the major label artists costs them literally no money. And I'm talking like if you get at Coldplay's level or any
well, you're
major
getting maybe
label,
a million.
If you start pressing 500,000 CDs, it doesn't matter how complicated the packaging is. It starts to become 10 pence per CD. Obviously, they're charging $9.99. It's just like when you're a band like Coldplay or Taylor Swift or something like that, a major label artist, you are essentially going to profit off the CD. Like, there is no way you cannot profit. Like, they could make 1 million CDs, sell 200,000, and they would still profit off the full run.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
Do you know what I mean? Even if they've got excess. Now, nobody wants to have 800,000 CDs sat there in a warehouse.
Well, that's why they end up $2.99 on Amazon, though. But that's often the case.
The thing is that they will sell them. Like a band like Coldplay, they will sell them.
If they're selling them for $2.99 on Amazon, they're probably making a profit. Even if that profit is 50p, say Amazon takes 50%, they sell it for £1.50. Chances are they're making that entire album for less than £1.
And the other thing with Coldplay is they're sort of in that touring schedule where even if they overpressed their release, they could just give it away with every ticket and people wouldn't even be mad. Like, even if you bought it, you go, I bought the ticket, I got another album free, I can put it on eBay or whatever.
Yeah.
If they wanted rid of their stock, now obviously I'm just talking hypotheticals here, but what I'm sort of saying is, I feel like bands like Coldplay and big major label artists have no excuse not to make like a deluxe version available physically.
Yeah.
It's just like, from a consumer standpoint, it's frustrating that they're constantly making products that you cannot tangibly buy.
Yeah.
And people will just buy them if they announce them. Like,
100%
physically.
they will. There was a lot of people. There was the digital deluxe version, the first digital deluxe version, which had the live album on, is only available physically in America. And there was a lot of people, because they won't ship outside America. So a lot of people in the comments were saying, I live in Canada or I live here or there, and it won't let me buy it because you have to have a US postcode. And I saw a lot of people actually trying to get that version. So I do completely agree.
And then scalpers will just sell it on eBay.
Yes.
And they'll just ship it on eBay. That's the thing with regional releases just don't work, because there's always a way that you can get them, and people will just pay through the nose for them. You'll just go,
collectors will.
You'll just go, send me it from America, get dude on eBay, I'll pay £60 for a £10 album. And people will buy two and sell them. You know, they just will. It's the same as tickets.
So there's another reason behind sort of doing this deluxe digital version that's announced later. Obviously, the album has already been reviewed as a 10-song album, which makes the album a lot more punchier in reviews. So I know the main thing that Chris Martin's been saying on a lot of the interviews is he doesn't want albums to be bloated. I think there was something that was said about albums being 42 to 44 or something. Under 45 minutes was their cap. They were saying they can't make an album over that length because it becomes too bloated, which this is a very bizarre contradiction to, because then you've got an album that lasts an hour and 19 minutes. And again, I know it's deluxe and some of the songs are repeats or edits. It's a different sort of kettle of fish, but it's interesting because obviously these songs like The Karate Kid and Man in the Moon and Airwave are exempt from reviews because none of the reviewers have actually heard these songs to make comments of in their reviews. So that's another interesting thing, which I think is really cool, because actually what these are for, these are directly for the fans. Like, they're not impacting reviews, they're not impacting pressing, they're not impacting anything, but they're saying, look, you're a fan, you can buy the album digitally or stream it, you can keep these songs, have them and enjoy them. And, chances are they don't really suit the actual means of Moon music, if you know what I mean. They are songs that they must have felt that these songs would be padding or make the album somehow over bloated, even though I've seen so many people saying that Man in the Moon in particular should have been on the album.
This comes back to the quality over quantity argument. Like, arguably the 3 extra songs are the same quality as the rest of the album, so why omit them when people just want them on the album anyway? Now, that's a taste thing, that's for the band to make, and that's how they made their decision. Now, as a fan, I would rather them be digital only than not available at all. I'd rather hear them now than, like you said earlier on,
in 20-year anniversary
anniversary edition, like say U2's currently doing with how to reassemble an atomic bomb and all that you can't leave behind. I'd honestly rather just have it now. And we've seen what happens with legacy artists like the Beatles when it starts getting really silly.
They've just announced the 60th anniversary version of Hard Day's Night. I don't know if you saw that.
Haven't they already done the 50th anniversary?
Yeah, but this is a 60th.
You see, it starts to become, when there's nothing left to show, I think it starts to become really difficult with these legacy artists. But obviously, people will always buy it, like you were saying with Queen's re-recorded one. Remixed one. It's just products that people will buy. And I find it very difficult because, everything in Coldplay's vault is going to get raided. It is 100% going to get raided, and we know that there's acoustic versions of Charlie Brown. There's different versions all over the place of Coldplay stuff, and that it seems to be quite in the open as to what Coldplay have been working on in the studio. Like we say, there's rumoured songs like Aurora and stuff that aren't here.
There was one on the Instagram comments, I've forgotten which one it is, but everybody on Coldplay's Instagram said, what about this song? For Moon Music, like they've announced these 10 extra songs. Everybody's like, this one's missing. Like everybody knows that there's songs that haven't surfaced. There was a song called Wedding Song by Coldplay that got patented, I believe, because that was sort of leaked. So that song also hasn't surfaced. But Wedding Song, musical, that sort of feels like maybe a fit. Yeah. So the thing is, like you sort of said this when we was watching the Zane Lowe interview, they're so far ahead of the public in their minds. Like they probably have songs already that are pinned for their final album, Coldplay. They probably already have songs that are post Coldplay, the final album, written down.
It's very messy as Coldplay, like the way the albums are constructed, because like they've said in a few I think, which one's the one where they go into the studio stuff? Is it A Head Full of Dreams where they go into the studio? And they talk about how Charlie Brown was going to be on
accordions and all that.
Accordions and stuff. And that how Milo was going to sound like Ghost Stories, and the songs all got shuffled around, and there was going to be 2 discs, one acoustic, one electronic.
Yes, yeah.
And you go, where are all these recordings?
Guy Berryman, the bass player, he said Charlie Brown cannot be played on accordion. It's too good of a song. It has to be played electric. And the album sort of got smashed together. Half the album got cut. And I believe they said Arabesque was written for either Viva La Vida or Milo's Arlotter. And I believe that there's been a couple of songs that have spilled over into different albums. I mean, obviously as well, People of the Pride, the full line of Crocodile, Cross-Eyed and stuff, these are all lines that match Major Minus, like crocodiles running around the world. Conceptually, these songs, and I believe they are set in the same universe, Music of the Spheres and Milo's Arlotter. I believe they confirmed that. So there's sort of direct references where there's songs that have spilled from other projects, and I do believe that People of the Pride was, I think they mentioned that it was also cut for Milo's Arlotter, or it was maybe the song was not formed enough for Milo's Arlotter, or it was an offshoot.
Yeah, and it's so strange when you're looking at it, because like you say, where as fans, you can only see what has been presented. Unless they sort of do an interview and they hint at something, you just don't know. But like you say, Coldplay might be so far ahead, they might have 5 songs for the last album already like in the tank, like ready to go, even if they're not recorded, they say written and voice noted, demoed down. And yeah, if they're even alluding to the musical idea, they definitely have started it.
Oh yeah,
like I don't
so.
see there being a way where they're saying, "Oh, we want to do a musical project," and it's like, right, we haven't started. That's the next project. It's clearly been a seed and an idea that has been growing for a lot of time. Now, is that going to be connected to Milo, because that has a full comic book universe? So the musical could literally be for that universe that they've created.
See, I was thinking the musical would be more stripped down. Sort of like an echo of everyday life. I was thinking that it'd be a project that wasn't toured very much, where they maybe didn't do tons and tons of press, because obviously they'll be coming off the road of Music of the Spheres at some point, and I don't imagine they will want to do a tour for the next album.
Yeah, the other thing is the final album going to be toured as well, or is it going to be like a send-off album to say, we're done? Do you know what I mean? It's hard with that bands because it depends on what they think they're doing. Like they might be doing Music of the Spheres' tour, absolutely going around the world 3 or 4 times, breaking records like they've done with the Wembley sort of 10 nights. And then they may say, that is the final tour. We've gone around the world 4 or 5 times. We've broke every record we can do. Any other band's going to have to really try hard to beat it. You know, that I mean, and like we say, when we get to bands as big as Coldplay, all they're doing is just trying to do like number chasing in a way. Like apart from like the art form of making music, it's just, well, how many nights is the most? How many nights is a record for Wembley? And somebody says 7, and they go, well, let's see if we can do 9 or 10. Yeah. Let's see if we can break that.
I think that's the only thing that gives them context, though. Like it's like to say, sort of small bands. It's like, let's do this venue, and then but you know, if you're a UK band, the end of the ceiling, basically, the top of the ceiling is either Glastonbury or Wembley. Like that's it. You can't really get any bigger than them two. And then you have to say, well, maybe we go to Sao Paulo or maybe we go to Madison Square Garden, and these are your goals. But if you're Coldplay, you've done all that like 10 times over. It's like, what is your goal? Like what's keeping you going? I think a lot of them say, like, you're hearing like interviews, like when they make it, that's when it becomes really hard, because it's like, well, you've achieved everything you set out to do, so why are you continuing? And I suppose it's a bit like they've said in the Zane Lowe stuff, you know, Chris Martin just can't stop thinking about Coldplay in terms of a songwriting capacity.
That's why I find it very hard to believe they would end Coldplay in such a well-rounded and neat way. I think it's very hard for them just to turn it off. Like you see people like Paul McCartney and stuff, they just can't turn that off. It's so hard to say, I'm done. And then somebody will say, like you say, a lot of the time they talk about just dreaming the songs. It's like, if you dream a song and you're Chris Martin, are you just going to leave it?
I mean, even Queen with Only the Good Die Young, you know, they still did that in 1999. Before they weren't even going when they did that song, but they still put it out and recorded it and released it with the 3 remaining members.
So to bring it back to Moon Music and to talk about the songs, right? Clearly there's some favourite songs that me and Peter have. We're always driven sort of into the like more electronic experimental stuff. I mean, Eterna does feel like a standout to me. Also, I Am a Mountain just feels like one of the quintessential Coldplay songs. But one of the songs that I feel like I'm always really happy to hear whenever I've heard it, and something they played on QVC as well, is Jupiter.
Yeah,
I feel
Jupiter's
like
a winner.
That probably is for me, maybe the best song on the album just as a song to listen to.
Yeah. It's surprising because I agree. Like, I love the production. I mean, Good Feelings and Eterna in particular. Also, like you say, I Am a Mountain is pretty nutty with the production. They're just big, sprawling like arrangements and productions. Because what Coldplay do so well is experimenting. Like a song like Eterna, you haven't heard a rock band do that ever.
Just the
not like it.
Vocoder choppy intro with the they could have done that a whole number of ways with a vocoder. All you have to do, you could be clapping and clicking or whispering into it to get that.
I think
it's
a onto a vocoder, and then they've sort of made that, because the thing is that is in the background of a lot of songs anyway, but a lot of the time it's not made known. Like, unless you get stems or they isolate it like that at the start of Eterna, you wouldn't really know it was there. But then, like you say as well, they've got all the Beatlesy crescendos. They've got songs smashed together, like Moon Music, Alien Hits, Alien Radio, and One World all have multiple sort of pieces of music smashed together. And then there's like, on the end of Jupiter and so many of the other songs, there's also things happening, like
little gospel things and stuff.
Different gospel bits, different quartet or string arrangements. So it's just a really, really cool album. I mean, I said when we listened to it the first time, I said, it says 10 songs, but it's probably like a 15, 16 song album if you actually sat there and like put the spaces in where the spaces could allow, like for interludes and for like half sections. Like Alien Hits, Alien Radio is like 2 songs, and Moon Music's like 2 songs.
It's hard, isn't it? Because I'm sure people listen to Music of the Spheres and when I'm fed up of all these like 50-second or 1-minute intros for songs that are split up on the track listing. I'd rather have Alien Hits, Alien Radio split into 2 parts than have to, like, particularly in like a streaming or like playlist fashion, you are sort of stuck with, I've got to put all 6 minutes and 10 in here. Even if I just want that really cool rocky intro thing on Alien Hits, it's really fun.
That's why I think there's a single version of Jupiter, I just think literally they just cut the last minute off the end. Because it's a 3-minute song, but it's a 4-minute song on the album because they have this string thing, I believe, on Jupiter at the end.
And I always feel with album releases, like for me, Feels Like I'm Falling in Love and We Pray are very muted when you listen because they're old songs. You've heard them, you know, they're not new in the context of Moon music. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes,
we've heard them. We heard them a few weeks ago, if not a few months ago, for Feels Like I'm Falling in Love. They're not new, so that's why you sort of like discount them when you talk about listening to an album, because I'm looking at the other 8 songs to say, what am I excited about? What haven't I heard? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously they're great tracks to have in this album as well. And I do feel like Feels Like I'm Falling in Love is like cemented itself as like a classic Coldplay single already, which I think is very impressive. All My Love is sort of doing that, but I think it's just because I've heard it like 15 times over the weekend. And I've seen them perform it on SNL, seen them perform the songs in lots of different ways. But like I say, for me, the Beatles stuff is cool, but I've gravitated towards the songs that don't do the Beatleisms.
Well, I do think, again, it's one of those things. The Beatleisms is what gives this album the sense of grandeur. Like, it feels huge. It feels like an event happening, I think, especially if you are a fan of Coldplay, because it's like, whoa, this album's like, it's out and it's big and it's a sprawling album. And, you know, like I said, the deluxe version's great because you get a bit more bang for buck. I mean, you could treat it almost as the 3 songs on the 3 official new songs, because there's a lot of edits on there as well, sort of actually turn the album into a 10-song album if you discount Moon Music, Alien Hits, Alien Radio, and One World, where they're more compositions than songs in a certain sense. Like the other 3 tracks, if you move them up, it builds it into a 10-song album, then with your additional sort of flourishes, like the album thing.
And it makes you wonder why they choose to not do that. Like, they've chose to have these big padded interludes and sections instead of just having 10 songs.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They've chose to have song 6 be like just an experimental art house piece of music instead of having Man on a Moon or Man in the Moon? Where is it? Man in the Moon. Yeah.
So I have a theory on this. This is, again, so when everybody's talking about Coldplay's retirement, which again I think is the complete wrong headline to take, it's a complete wrong way of looking at it. The reason why Coldplay aren't making albums is because when they talk about an album, it's songs like Moon Music, Alien Hits, Alien Radio, One World, songs like Milo's Our Lotto, ambient intros and outros and interludes. That's what they view as being necessary for an album. I think that they will put out EPs, they will put out songs, singles all the time, because they will probably get a song. I mean, Jupiter, Chris Martin could do that in a day, a couple of hours. Like, song comes to him, like he said in Zane Lowe, boom, grabs a guitar, plays it acoustic, the band adds some extra flourishes on, it's done. It takes them like a day to make a song like that, because Coldplay have honed their craft so much. That isn't like something that they would find necessarily difficult. But songs like Moon Music and, like I say, all the interludes and the 6-minute ones, they are difficult because, you know, when you start to get to sort of the more pompous and big level, it's like, well,
we've got to get the full orchestra, we've got to get a gospel choir, we've got to literally throw the book at it.
But also it's so subtle, like it's so nuanced. Like, how do you make string movements like and orchestral passages, like how do you give them context in the space of an album? You've got to have all these different bits, these electronic beds, these, you know, the movements to go between. So they're sort of like writing several songs at once that they need to then connect via these arrangements. So I think that, again, that's why they are penciling in 2 more albums, because they feel probably that they've said all they can say with albums, and maybe they don't want to release like a Hysteria or a Greatest Hits almost like new album where it's 10 solid songs, because Coldplay's track record imply that that's not what they view an album as. They view an album as a full passage of music you're supposed to listen to in one go, ideally, and actually experience these moments that aren't for singles. You know, Moon Music doesn't listen too great by itself. You know, it is part of a bigger picture.
The songs are contextual in the placement of the album, aren't they?
Yeah.
They don't work by themselves. Some of the songs, like maybe 7 or 8 of the tracks, work by themselves, and then some of the tracks don't work by themselves. They're just like, if you listen to Alien Hits, Alien Radio by itself, you think, what is this? But yeah, it is interesting. And also, like, Feels Like I'm Falling in Love has like an edited bit with a lot of stretched out stuff on the intro. It does, and stuff.
Yeah. A lot of the versions, all the versions on the album, from what I've seen, are different to the actual singles, maybe with the exception of We Pray. They are different edits than the single versions that have come out. And then the consequent singles like Jupiter, obviously, again, different edits of the songs, because Moon Music is designed as an album. It's not designed, I mean, we were saying, like, when it came out, it doesn't really work great for streaming because songs have massive gaps in the middle and interludes and like full minute, like, oh, this is just a gospel section, or here's some found sounds for a minute at the start and end of certain tracks. So it works better as a vinyl, as a CD, as it's intended. And I think that's why they are not doing more than 12 albums.
So on that note, have you listened to Moon Music yet? Do you think that the deluxe versions are good ideas, or would you rather only have the 10 songs and not hear all the other fluff? Do you know what I mean? A lot of people like quality over quantity. So what do you think? Let us know in the comments below. And thanks for listening, everybody.